Today I want to do a reaction and discussion on a big YouTuber's recent video that he published about a month or so ago titled How I Became Broke. So this is a YouTuber that I used to follow semi-often. His name is LAHWF or LAHWF. It stands for Losing All Hope Was Freedom, which comes from a movie, which I don't think it has any relation to what he does, but he used to be this very popular prank channel. He would do these like public pranks that were a bit more on the fun, light-hearted side. Like they weren't trying to hurt anyone publicly, and I know that's some pranks get a bad name for that, but these were very fun pranks, at least when I used to watch them back in like 2015, 2016. And now he has 2.3 million subscribers, but his views, his engagement has definitely gone down. Like, his videos get like 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 views, when back in the day they got 500,000 and a million. And it's also because he's kind of changed his content. He used to do these pranks where, he would go up to random people on college campus and then play music and just start dancing to like a fun beat in front of them, or something else that's kind of, just fun. And he had this kind of calm, introverted personality. But that's neither here nor there. What happened? He went broke basically, and I wish the best for him, but it just kind of speaks to having solid personal finance fundamentals and keeping those, and basic YouTube fundamentals too about managing your money. But like even he falls prey to this stuff. So what was the story? What happened? Well, he basically explained that he was making good money off YouTube even until 2019. He made 250,000 before taxes, and then 200,000 in 2018 and 2019. And he basically partied too much, didn't make content for a while, and just traveled a lot. He went to Paris, Japan, Russia, while still paying for a $3,600 place in LA. And he definitely admitted it was his own fault for making bad financial decisions. He went 50K into debt, probably from overspending. And he also admitted that he assumed that the money would last forever, that YouTube would continue to put out this money for him forever. And it did not. The amount of money started decreasing every year, and he also didn't pay attention to taxes. So he would spend all of it, and then at the end of the year, he'd get a bill from the government for 40K in taxes, which he would put on a credit card. And of course, credit cards have massive interest rates, so if you don't pay it, it just snowballs into more debt. So I think it really just speaks to the importance of personal finance. I've been watching him for years, and I've made a lot of videos on personal finance, as have many other YouTubers. And it's interesting how people keep repeating the same mistakes or just missing the personal finance videos. So even though it seems to us like we're bombarding others with this content, a lot of new young people are not ever encountering it, or just choosing not to listen or follow or learn about it. And so I think it starts with living below your means, spending less than you make, and not getting into debt. And I mentioned YouTube best practices, but also kind of having that cautious early YouTube era view about the sustainability of YouTube. I think maybe it's still the case to some, but it's much less of the case now, since social media has become established and there's so many creators making so much money that it just seems like it'll continue forever. But in the early YouTube era, many creators and some still are, but Just Kidding Films is one example. They were very, very cautious about the validity of YouTube. Even when it started making them a sizable income, they really had these backups in place. They had full-time jobs. They were cautious about it and skeptical about it, because you have parents, all the people saying, "What's this YouTube thing? That it'll never last. It's not sustainable." So they took a very cautious approach to that, and I think that's still something that you should factor in if you ever become social media successful, because there's so many people I've seen come and go. I mean, I've been watching YouTube almost since it started, probably like 4 or 5 years after its release. So back in like 2008, I've seen people come and go. Kev Jumba, Athene Wins, Hey It's Fred, and tons of them. Smosh came and went. Tons of these people. Peter Chow. Tons of these people who, at the height of their YouTube success, Make Me Bad is another one. There's so many. At the height of their success, they were achieving millions of views every video. Overboard Humor is another one. And now, if you look at their channels, they're getting 5,000, 10,000 views per video. And it just speaks to how difficult it is to keep up with the times. And I've interviewed people like Timothy Chantarangsu, formerly known as De La Ghetto, who are one of the few who have been able to sustain that brand. I think Ryan Higa is another, but I would call them as the minority. There's only like a few people, like I guess Anthony Padilla from Smosh, that have been able to sustain that over time. And when you look at them, the Jenna Marbles, the Ryan Higas of the world, they're a small percentage. I feel like a lot of them, they hit their peak and then YouTube changes. The trends change, the demand changes, the competition changes, and things, they can't get that same formula of success to work. Or they get canceled and things were never the same afterwards. I think some of you probably know who I'm talking about. That guy who got canceled a few years ago for, I guess, sexual assault allegations. And ever since, his channel is just demolished. Tobuscus is his name. He had like millions of subscribers, and now it's at like 10,000, 20,000, 50,000. And so, you have to be cautious about this. You can't assume that it will last forever. It's a mixture of things. I think for some of them, they couldn't keep up because all of a sudden there's a wave of people putting out custom YouTube thumbnails. And these people, like Make Me Bad 35, they were used to just putting out videos, and they never really figured out the thumbnail game after that, and that cost them. But there's all sorts of reasons to this, and it is very fascinating. So with that in mind, like, what is the best thing to do? What is the best investment there? Well, always have that savings nest. Always have that 1-2 year savings nest so that you can survive if YouTube fails or whatever fails. And these are back to personal finance basics. Have that nest egg. Have that savings nest. Have that savings pay yourself first mentality, so that a reasonable percentage of what you earn is immediately socked away. And so when you have that, although it sounds so simple, there's so many people who fall prey to this mindset of, I've earned this much, I'm going to spend 100% of that or 90% of that. It's ridiculous, but I guess they don't really follow what people have learned time and time again. And especially when you start earning a lot off social media, like 200,000 or $1 million, it should, in theory, become much easier to do that. You can sock away 300,000 and keep doing that, and you'll be set for life in a way, as long as you keep your expenses reasonable. But I think what happens is they just go crazy. This is why, Mike Tyson and 50 Cent went bankrupt, I believe. Where, they make $1 million, they spend $2 million, then they go into debt. They just don't know any better. They're not tracking their finances, or they're not being smart with it. Even if you spend 100% of it or 90% of it, it's a tough situation, because a lot of them, they're just young kids. They don't know any better, so their ability, their inclination to spend more increases, their standard of living increases. And sure, you can treat yourself within reason, but that doesn't mean you go from a lifestyle of $2,000 in expenses a year to $10,000 just all of a sudden because you raised to a $10,000 a month lifestyle. So I say all this, and I know from experience that it's not easy. It's not hard. I struggle with this too. How do you keep your expenses down when you want to buy that Blue Eyes White Dragon card, or you want to go to parties, or you want to get a fancy place that you can flex in an apartment in LA? So I wish the best for LAHWF, and he seems to have readjusted. It seems like about a year ago he moved to the East Coast, severely cut his living expenses, lived off Airbnbs, which can also get very expensive. So you still have to be cautious there. And things have been looking up ever since he cut expenses. He's also in a different stage in his life. He seems a little bit happier now. I don't know for sure, but he seems happier now. And he just cut expenses a lot. Seems to live out in the country, or it's hard to tell. And is in a different stage in life. So, he's in his 30s now. He can't be going to, he could still go to college campuses. They probably would kick him off. But he's just not in that stage where he wants to do that same content anymore. So, although he has millions of subscribers, this is the case with a lot of YouTube channels. Some of them just decay, or they're at a different stage in their life, so they can't create the same content, or the same content isn't relevant, so the engagement isn't there. And that's fine. It's okay to have YouTube as a hobby, not as a main driver of income. Even if it does drive a significant amount of income, it's still good to maybe treat it as, okay, this is supplementary income. I shouldn't spend it all, I shouldn't save it all. So I'm glad that he's started to learn his lesson, even if he had to learn it the hard way. Maybe it's a lesson for some of you, if any of you become social media stars or start building income online one day. And I think he's in a better place now. He seems to be happy. He seems to be living in a much more affordable place. And it's also a lesson about work ethic and checking in on your numbers, but also checking in on yourself and what you want out of life, and if you're putting in the work to deserve that stuff. Sure, you can cruise for a while sometimes if you're lucky enough, but sometimes that catches up to you. So invest in your own skills, your own success. Be self-aware enough to see when those trends are changing. And I need to work on that myself. I've been trying to switch it up on my YouTube a lot, but these are just the type of videos I enjoy, the talking head videos. So I'm self-aware enough to know that these aren't going to get lots of views, but I enjoy doing them. So there's that chicken and egg. I have been doing a lot of other things though, vlogs, custom thumbnails, and all sorts of other stuff. So I'm trying new things to grow my own engagement and following. But very, very interesting idea to ponder. And I gotta say, I am not just wagging a finger at him. I wish the best for him, and I'm doing this just to have a discussion and talk about it and help others. And also, I think I can relate a bit. There's definitely stuff that I regret buying, and that and there are times where I've been tempted to spend more than I should. and I've gone on to fancy restaurants just because I wanted to, or I bought Pokemon cards, Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and you know maybe I shouldn't because it was too much of a purchase, too much of a splurge. So I am lucky to say that I have a bit more of that financial sense, but it's still a struggle. There are things that I was like, man, that was way too much of a purchase. I shouldn't have done that. Um, I mentioned that in a previous video about buying that four-figure Charizard, and it was just like, why did I do that? That's such a large amount of money for a card, and the price dropped afterwards. So it was just a terrible decision on my part. I got greedy there, and I thought the price would be an investment. But how much of it is actually an investment? How much can you actually spend? And I think a good portion of good financial sense. And one thing that does help is paying yourself first. So before you spend on anything else, put a portion of that into investments, savings, things that you can't touch. And so then you have a more reasonable dial on what you can and can't spend. And you've already put money into savings, so that's already handled. And you're always going to be growing your savings that way. So hopefully that helps. That's the video.